Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 17 wide receiver rankings. Going to be going over, as per usual, the matchups at the wide receiver position for this coming week. After that, I'm going to be talking about my 1 through 36 wide receiver rankings and going over, the normal stuff. We've been doing this for a good amount of time now. If you're new to the channel, hopefully this information helps you out, helps you pick up a championship. For those of you who have always been here, the loyal viewer, yes, I'm talking to you. Thank you for coming out, watching this video, and supporting my channel. And without further ado, let's get right into it really quickly. All right, hey guys, how's it going? All right, before we begin, I just wanted to go ahead and mention, for those of you, yes, who are playing in a Week 17 championship, I will be doing a live stream this Sunday morning, probably from 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 10 a.m. Just about 2-hour live stream, just to get as many as the questions as you guys have answered. I know there's not many of you that are playing in a championship week this week, or perhaps you were eliminated last week. So there shouldn't be too many questions to answer, but I'll give a good amount of time for those of you who are interested coming by on Sunday morning, ask some questions, because that's the last time you'll be able to for this coming season. Anyway, I just want to throw out that reminder. Again, it's 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sunday morning. All right, let's get into the video, shall we? All right, so to begin, as usual, we're going to talk about the matchups at the wide receiver position for this coming week. All right, we're going to go through this video quickly. Yesterday, I literally sat here. I looked into the camera and I said, we're going to go through this quickly. And I don't know how. I literally don't know how. The time on the video is in front of me. I spent 36 minutes talking about dumbass running backs yesterday. I don't know how I did that, but so be it. Today, I promise you, will be a shorter video. All right, so talking about matchups at the wide receiver position. Giving up the most points to the wide receiver position on a weekly basis, it is the New Orleans Saints for the 2018 season. Despite them giving up a lot of points to the wide receiver position, they seem to be quite the successful team, sitting at the 13-2 record thus far this season. This coming week, from what I can tell, they're not going to be playing their starters. If, in fact, they end up playing their starters, it is going to be for 1 or 2 drives at max. I don't think they're willing to risk injury, especially when they can potentially compete for an NFL Super Bowl championship this year. So I don't really see the New Orleans Saints playing many of their starters offensively and defensively, which could, give some opportunities to the Panthers. Now, the Panthers are on their third-string quarterback, so that's not really much of a help. And if Christian McCaffrey's out, this offense is going to have a hard time moving. I don't really see much success in the future of perhaps DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Devin Funchess this week. All right, moving on to the number 2 team giving up the most points to the wide receiver position. Close, just 1 point behind from the Saints. It is the New York Jets. They get to play against the Tom Brady-led New England Patriots offense that, as of late, they've been consistently running the ball. With the loss of Josh Gordon, it obviously hurts them offensively. But Brady just hasn't looked the same this season. Other than Julian Edelman, there originally isn't a consistent wide receiver on this team. So he's really the only wide receiver that I feel like could potentially take advantage of this matchup. I'm sure guys like Cordero Patterson or potentially Chris Hogan could have a big play for a touchdown, maybe like 2 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown, and that makes their week. But really, just I don't trust anybody other than Edelman within this offense this week. Moving on to number 3, the Eagles. They play against the Washington Redskins this week, and as of the last couple of weeks, specifically, this offense is moving. They've been moving the ball pretty consistently comparatively to what they were doing with Mark Sanchez those couple weeks. Colt McCoy was decent, but really wasn't getting the offense moving too much in his little reign at quarterback before he took his injury. So as of right now, Jamison Crowder is pretty much the only wide receiver. Other than him, maybe Josh Doctson this week if you're thin at the wide receiver position. Moving on, Green Bay Packers, they play against the Lions. Kenny Golladay, I mean, he should be a pretty good play this week, plain and simple. This defense got completely torched by Robby Anderson and Sam Darnold, Elijah McGuire, Chris Herndon last week. So potentially they could, again, give up a lot of points. And Kenny Galladay's really the main and only weapon when it comes to receiving the ball for this team. Moving on, the Carolina Panthers. On the other side of the ball, It's going to be Teddy Bridgewater starting as the quarterback for the Saints. Actually, he might need to even start. Like I mentioned before, Drew Brees potentially could play one drive and then leave. But Teddy Bridgewater will be taking over the rest of the game. I'm not sure, how many of their wide receivers they're going to use and whether you want to really play them this week, considering it's just an entire backup offense. So it's probably there's better plays this week. The 49ers, they play against the Rams, and the Rams wide receiver core, Robert Woods is the number one on that team. Unfortunately, Brandin Cooks in the last couple of weeks, they've just been double covering him every single game. Yes, he had a good stint earlier this season in which he was scoring 20 points consistently every single week. And now the teams have pretty much... What happened to my camera? Whoa. What the hell happened? Whoa. Goodness gracious. Are we still live? Am I still recording? Okay. I think I'm still recording. All right. Technical difficulties. I have no idea what just happened. I kind of want to assume I know what happened, but I don't know what happened. So we're moving on. Okay. Anyway, as I was mentioning, I don't know how long it was out for, though. All right, forget about it. All right, the camera's glitching. Maybe the battery. I don't know what happened. Either way, moving on. I was talking about the 49ers. I was talking about Brandin Cooks. I know Robert Woods is a good player this week going forward, but can Brandin Cooks consistently figure it out? I don't know. He's getting the double coverage every game, and I really just, other than Robert Woods, it's he'll be decent. He'll have like 10 points minimum, maybe maximum, to be honest, from what he's been doing in the last couple weeks. All right, moving on, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I expect all three wide receivers for the Falcons, whether it's Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, and Calvin Ridley, to be relevant this week. This secondary and this defense has been giving up a lot of points, and Matt Ryan seems to be playing this week. So those three guys should find some success this week, coming off of big games, all three of them scoring touchdowns, in fact, this past week. Moving on, the Kansas City Chiefs. The only Raiders wide receiver is really Jordy Nelson. He's been seeing a good amount of work, especially in a PPR format. He's getting a good amount of targets, catching about 6-7 balls a game. His yards obviously just are dependent on how the coverage wants to play on him. But as of right now, he's been looking decent. And the difficulties that the Kansas City Chiefs defense is having, especially this past week, their number one corner was out for that game. If he continuously is out, seems to be out maybe. As of right now, it's not a bad matchup, especially if you're struggling to find a wide receiver due to all the other guys that perhaps are not playing this week. Moving on, let's see here. The Tennessee Titans, they struggled against the wide receiver. The last time T.Y. Hilton played against the Titans, he had himself a great game. And I think that, this Colts versus Titans game, it's going to be exciting. It determines who pretty much wins that wild card spot and enters the playoffs. And to be honest, as of right now, I see it as probably the Colts wanting to throw the ball as much as they possibly can, take advantage of that. So Chester Rogers, T.Y. Hilton, two guys that are going to be pretty productive this week. Let's move on. The Pittsburgh Steelers giving up some points to the wide receiver position. They play against the Bengals this week, so not really sure that's going to be able to make a difference. I think if anybody's going to have an opportunity to make a play, it's John Ross. But other than that, really nothing else. Moving on, the Washington Redskins playing against the Eagles. Nick Foles coming off of a 30-point game in fantasy, putting up 30 points as the Eagles starting quarterback against the Rams and against the against who they played past week. Goodness gracious, against the Texans. So as of late, he's been looking good. Against the Rams, didn't really throw the ball often. Majority of his statistics had to do with just handing off the ball. Literally, that's all he did. They scored majority of their points just running the ball through Wendell Smallwood on the goal line. This past week showed that, hey, he's still got an arm. He can still compete. And this week against the Washington Redskins, he should be able to tear them apart pretty handily and perhaps get his team into the playoffs. Moving on, Cincinnati Bengals giving up. The Atlanta Falcons giving up some points. Jameis Winston, Adam Humphries, Mike Evans. Those are three guys that should be starts this week, in my opinion. I'll go over quarterbacks tomorrow, but Adam Humphries and Mike Evans, they should start both of them this week. They're both top 24 wide receivers, absolutely. Moving on, the Bengals, it's really hard not to convince yourself to start Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, two of the best wide receivers in the NFL right now. Both will have great games, without a doubt. Moving on, let's see here. The Chicago Bears. Yes, the Chicago Bears they gave up the 14th most points to the wide receiver position. That being said, the last time they played against the Vikings, they really forced the Vikings to pass the ball to Stefon Diggs. They were not going to give up anything to Adam Thielen. They knew that majority of the success was through Adam Thielen. And as of the last couple of weeks, Adam Thielen has pretty much been taken away. Teams are taking away the Adam Thielen option. They're forcing the Vikings to pretty much stick with, other options. Stefon Diggs, obviously. Kyle Rudolph, who stepped up this past week, and Dalvin Cook in the running game. So this coming week, Stefon Diggs probably the better option between the two, playing against the Bears. Okay, and then let's see. The Cleveland Browns. They play against the Ravens this week. And, the Ravens, do they pass the ball? No, they don't. They run the ball, and they rely on defense. So that really doesn't matter. Moving on. The Rams. Nick Mullins. Can he figure it out? Even with Dante Pettis down, can perhaps Kendrick Bourne or Marquise Goodwin step up this week? I'm not buying into that narrative, but there's a potential. The Seahawks, who plays against the Seahawks this week? It is the Cardinals. Maybe Larry Legend. Of all the wide receivers, he threw a touchdown last week. Maybe they're just trying to pad some stats before Larry ends up retiring. I don't know if that's next year or this year, but either way, Larry Fitzgerald is probably the best option there. These last couple teams, no big deal. Lions, Cardinals, Patriots, Broncos, Miami Dolphins. Okay, but who's got the toughest matchups as of right now? When you play against the Jaguars, as we know, Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye, they are quite the dynamic duo, stopping the majority of the passing game against their team. DeAndre Hopkins will play against them. He will not have a guy like Demaryius Thomas across from him on the other side of the field. I think he sustained a Achilles injury this past week. So as of right now, Nuke Hopkins he's gonna have some struggles. I'm telling you, they're going to double cover him, maybe triple cover him as much as they possibly can, try to force the Texans to beat the Jaguars in a different way. Moving on, the Vikings are playing against the Bears, and the Vikings defense is much improved the last couple of weeks. They've gotten more healthy, and with that, they've become more and more of a elite defense as they've gotten comfortable. And as the offense has kept, drives going, it allows the defense to sit on the sideline, get rest, analyze the film in their little iPad things, and then come out and make some plays. The Ravens, they're gonna give Baker Mayfield some trouble for sure. I don't know who the starting quarterback of the Titans is right now. I'm not sure if Mariota's gonna go. I'm assuming he will. I mean, they're in the playoffs at this point, so chances are the Colts, they'll give them some trouble, but all they want to do is pass the ball. So, all they want to do is run the ball, So I don't think, wide receivers like Corey Davis are of much value. But anyway, these are my rankings. As I mentioned, we're going to go through this quickly. So let's just go ahead. Let's move on over to my rankings for this week before my camera goes out again. Here we go. All right, number one, we have Antonio Brown playing against Cincinnati Bengals. He is the number one wide receiver this week because, they play against such an easy matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals aren't going to be able to put much of a fight up. And as of right now, Antonio Brown, coming off of a great performance last week, and to be honest, just coming off of a great season, has stayed healthy, and we'll continue to see a lot of touches and targets. But I think he had about 17 targets last week. Yeah, that's probably going to keep going in his direction. So he's my number one wide receiver. I think if I'm not mistaken, he had about 38.5 fantasy points last week in half-point PPR. He either beat you last week in the championship or you won with him on your team, or, he was eliminated 7 weeks ago because he had a dodgy week. Either way, moving on, number two, Julio Jones playing against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it's a really good matchup, and I think if Julio Jones is to play, he will find the end zone, end up getting some much needed stats for his owners. So I think with just such an easy matchup, it's a given that Julio Jones must be on the field and in your starting lineup. Davante Adams is number three. Has been looking good. Another guy who had a lot of targets last week. He had 10 catches for 55 yards about midway through the third quarter. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he has 10 catches, but he had 15 targets almost through I think it was about 12 in the first half. He was really just absorbing a lot of the targets from Aaron Rodgers. They weren't for many yards, but either way, Davante Adams is the number one target there, and he's going to continuously see work. So he's my number three this week. Number four, T.Y. Hilton playing against a sketchy secondary of the Tennessee Titans, something that the Colts want to take advantage of, and the only way to do that is through T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck. So T.Y. Hilton, you're my number four wide receiver this week. Number five, is Mike Evans. Mike Evans, welcome back to the top 5. I'm not sure when the last time you were up here was. I'm pretty sure I can look it up, but as of right now, Mike Evans, congratulations. You play against one of the easier matchups in the NFL against the Atlanta Falcons this week. And to be honest, with Jameis Winston still trying to save his job and maintain, at least be a starting quarterback by next year, everyone's playing for a job on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Mike Evans should be good this week against the Falcons. Number 6, DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's got a tough matchup against AJ Boye, Jalen Ramsey, but I still think if in fact things start going in their direction, DeAndre Hopkins Deshaun Watson just gives him an opportunity, throws the ball in his direction. He'll be able to make some plays, end up scoring some points for you. Number 7, we have Robert Woods, the number 1 wide receiver for the Rams. I'm assuming that Todd Gurley's probably not going to go this week. They need to keep him healthy, and they really don't need him to beat the 49ers. Who they do need to beat the 49ers is pretty much Robert Woods and Jared Goff giving them the ball. They used Robert Woods in the run, in that jet sweep offense this past week. Found himself a rushing touchdown, scored on a receiving touchdown. Robert Woods is the number 1 piece of that offense outside of the whoever's playing running back, whether it's C.J. Anderson or Todd Gurley. So he's my number 7 this week. Number 8, we have Doug Baldwin playing against the Cardinals defense. I understand that Patrick Peterson could give him some trouble, but we've seen it in the past. Doug Baldwin's pretty comfortable within this division. Now that we've gotten a fully healthy Doug Baldwin, it really doesn't matter. He becomes matchup proof, especially with Russell Wilson at quarterback. So they're going to be a great combo going into the playoffs. And for this week, they should be good. All signs point to they are playing. So if in fact they're playing, Doug Baldwin's up here at number 8. Number 9, we have Keenan Allen coming off of 2 really bad weeks. If you still manage to be in the playoffs at this point, even though he had a goose egg week in which he got an injury and left the game, and with last week's performance against a tougher defense, if you've managed to make it this far, I don't see how you can leave him on your bench playing against the Denver Broncos, who have been terrible in the last couple of weeks, just really giving up anything and everything to opposing offenses. Keenan Allen's the number 1 wide receiver of this team, and he should have a great week. He's my number 9. Number 10, Juju Smith-Schuster. The only reason Juju's a little bit lower this week is because James Conner looks like he's going to play. If in fact James Conner plays, it does reduce the value of Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, Antonio Brown's the 1A on that team. The second wide receiver option is Juju, but as they continuously run the ball, giving it to James Conner, it is going to take value away from Juju. And potentially, even if it's Jalen Samuels, I think they're still going to run the ball a lot because the Cincinnati Bengals give up the most points on the ground. So as of right now, either way, Juju Smith, I'm not seeing him having too good of a week, but still, again, he's a top 10 wide receiver. He must start. Number 11, Stefon Diggs, the better of the 2 wide receivers there as of late for Minnesota. Found the end zone again this past week. Continuously finds the end zone and continuously has value for his fantasy owners. Just got to see him get a little bit more targets. I understand that they're blowing out teams early and often the last couple weeks, and it's forcing them not to have to throw the ball late in games, which is pretty much diminishing his value. But as of right now, playing against the Bears this coming week, I expect his value to go up because the Bears do not give much up in the running game, and they're going to force the Vikings to have to pass in order to pick up a W. So Stefon Diggs is my number 11. Number 12, Tyreek Hill. I leave him as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, because to be honest, if this guy doesn't find the end zone, what value does he have? And as of late, teams are just not letting him have anything. Patrick Mahomes is not finding him on the deep ball, and really just he's not being of much value. 5 points is not going to cut it for a guy who really was the number 1 wide receiver for majority of the season until after they hit that bye week. They hit that bye week in week 13, and Tyreek Hill has not returned since playing against that in the Rams game where he had like 30-some-odd points. Moving on, we have number 13, Alshon Jeffery. Really the number 1 wide receiver of the Eagles, has looked better and better with Nick Foles. Should be great this week. He's my number 13, especially against a softer secondary in the Washington Redskins, giving up the 11th most points to the wide receiver. I expect him to be great, especially, when there's Zach Ertz and there's Nelson Agholor and there's Darren Sproles, when there's so many offensive weapons for the other team to worry about, it becomes that much harder to guard a guy that's 6'5" and can go up and pretty much catch any ball you put in his wingspan's vicinity. Moving on to number 14, Robby Anderson, a guy that's been coming on strong as of late. He is making a push to try to increase his value for next year's drafts. And he's doing so. In the last couple of weeks with Sam Darnold continuously finding the end zone, continuously seeing a lot of targets, and this offense has been moving. This coming week they play against the Patriots, who, yes, they're still looking for a win, but potentially Robby Anderson, Sam Darnold could find some great value this week. He's my number 14. 15, Julian Edelman on the other side of that matchup against the Jets. Really the most consistent wide receiver for the Patriots this week. I don't see anybody else really as a guaranteed lock for a good amount of fantasy points within that offense other than Sony Michel. So as of right now, Julian Edelman, you sit at my number 15 this week. 16, we have Kenny Golladay playing against the Packers defense. Matthew Stafford has been awful this season. He has just been a shell of himself. They gave away Golden Tate for practically nothing. Marvin Jones went down with an ACL injury, and his offensive line has been dodgy. Kerryon Johnson went out really, not early, but he's been gone for 5 weeks now. It's hurting him. That's to say the least. This offense is no longer a throw-first offense and run the ball if we really have to. It's becoming something that Matthew Stafford can't find success in. This coming week, it's a super easy matchup. It's one of the easiest in the leagues. The Packers are giving up points in bunches, and I think Kenny Golladay should be able to find some value. 17, Adam Thielen. Like I mentioned before, Adam Thielen's going to find some trouble. Even though the Bears, they're not great against opposing wide receivers, I'm pretty sure they're going to double cover him again. They're going to try to stop Adam Thielen from doing anything. They're going to try to get him frustrated, get him a little bit tilted, and eventually take advantage of him. But if, in fact, Kirk Cousins can come out and look like a good quarterback, look like he's worth the money that the Vikings are spending for him, you'll find Adam Thielen. He could have decent value. Number 17, yeah, he's my number 17. Number 18, we have Brandin Cooks playing against the 49ers. All you got to do is throw the ball up and hope to God he can go get it. And you never know. I'm pretty sure he's faster than Richard Sherman. So if they put Richard Sherman's slow ass on him, he should be able to burn him. Hopefully find some value this week for his fantasy owners. All right, moving on to the last 18 players I wanted to mention. A lot of names are going to be a little bit questionable, right? Because we're sitting in a week in which a lot of wide receivers are either not playing or potentially don't have that much value because even if they play, it's a tougher matchup. So a couple new names here or there. Either way, we're going into number 19, Tyler Lockett, a guy that, yes, if he finds the end zone, he's getting 16 points. But even if he doesn't find the end zone, this guy's consistently finding himself 10 points plus. Every single week in a half-point PPR, he's extremely consistent whether or not he finds the end zone. I like the upside of the touchdown this week, especially against the Cardinals. So Tyler Lockett, he's my number 19. Number 20, Mohamed Sanu, playing against Tampa Bay, easier matchup, and I think, to be honest, Mohamed Sanu should be good. He really should. This past week had about 8 targets, good amount of receptions, found himself in the end zone against honestly, the Panthers are a better secondary than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're really at their wits' end, and maybe perhaps Mohamed Sanu could figure it out, get himself another touchdown, which I honestly could see happening this week. And if they, in fact, hold Julio Jones out, there's potential that Mohamed Sanu becomes a top 15, top 12 wide receiver this week. Number 21, we have Larry Fitzgerald. Man, somehow finds value. No matter what he ends up doing, he somehow finds value. This past week through a touchdown pass, inflates his numbers a little bit here or there. But to be honest, this potentially could be Larry Fitzgerald's last game. So I expect something big. Okay, it might be a little bit out there, but to be honest, in the slot against the Seahawks should be decent. All right, number 22, Adam Humphries. To be honest, if you're looking for PP, oh man, you know what? Adam Humphries might even be better play than Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald's like hey, you know what? You've been so great in fantasy your entire career. We're going to play you anyway. But honestly, Adam Humphries right now I'm thinking about it. He had 10 receptions last week. He's probably a better play than Larry Fitzgerald. Playing against the sorry-ass Falcons defense, they've been causing turnovers. Don't get me wrong. They have been putting in some work. They've been picking up W's because of the defense in the last couple of weeks, forcing turnovers, but not against great quarterbacks. But either way, Adam Humphries this week, he's my number 22. Number 23, Robert Foster. Didn't have a great week this past week. Zay Jones picked up that late touchdown against the New England Patriots, which kind of Didn't really help Robert Foster owners, even though I was pretty high on him last week. I'm still within that same idea where Robert Foster is a big play guy, and he should be decent this week at 23. 24, Sterling Shepard. When in fact the Cowboys defense pulls their starting cornerbacks, I'm sure Eli's going to find some success, and the only person to throw that to, other than Evan Ingram or Saquon, is Sterling Shepard, who is my number 24 this week. 25, Jordy Nelson. As I mentioned before, the Chiefs giving up a bunch of points to the wide receiver position. Jordy Nelson's consistently getting 7 targets a week, 6-7 catches a game. He's been looking good. So if you play in a PPR, not bad in the standard. He's a flex play at best. That's why he's about, he's not a wide receiver 2 just yet. He's just a higher end kind of flex play in a PPR. Moving on, Calvin Ridley's 26. The only reason Calvin Ridley had much value last week, the start of the second half, he caught a 70-yard touchdown. It pretty much caught a 40-yard ball and ran it for the extra 30. Comparatively to Mohamed Sanu, what happened there? I had a glitch in the system. Comparatively to Mohamed Sanu, who had a bunch of targets, had a bunch of receptions, and was used throughout the entire game, Calvin Ridley's got just a little bit less value than him. Okay, here we go. Allen Robinson. Now, he had a good week this past week. I expected him to be decent. Now, the issue is he plays against the Vikings and Xavier Rhodes. That is not something you want to do, and that is why he's just sitting at 27 this week. Number 28, Courtland Sutton. Touchdown monster. If you can find him in the end zone, he can score a touchdown. He ended up doing that this week. Hopefully he can do it again against the Chargers this week, but between all the other receivers, he has the higher upside at a touchdown. Even though he might not get as many targets or catches, he has the higher end of a touchdown because he's a bigger body and they want to find him in the end zone. Moving on to 29, Chester Rodgers, playing against that sorry Titans defense, especially their secondary, not their defense. Up front, the front 7 with the defensive line and linebackers, they can get after it, they can stop the run, but their secondary, not so good. So Chester Rodgers, who is seeing a lot of targets this season, could end up finding some values. My number 29. Number 30, we have Jamison Crowder playing against... yes, he's playing against the secondary of the Eagles, but really he plays in the slot. Majority of his catches are within 5-10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So I don't really see him taking advantage of the secondary. I see him taking advantage of their linebackers and potentially, having a good game in a PPR format if he continues to see a lot of targets and catches. All right, moving on to 31, we have Corey Davis. Like I mentioned before, all they want to do is run the ball. So I really don't trust them. I sit him down here because maybe, in fact, he can get a touchdown in the back of the end zone once they get down there. But other than that, I really just, DaeSean Hamilton found a touchdown this past week. The only issue is if he doesn't end up catching a touchdown in a half-point PPR, setting, he's about an 8-point guy, not bad. So that's why he sits about down here like a flex play. Nelson Agholor, 33. If, in fact, this offense starts rolling like I expected to do, Nelson Agholor has found his rapport with Nick Foles. Last season through the back end of that season and earlier on in the season when Nick Foles was the starting quarterback against the Falcons and against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we saw him get a lot of targets when Alshon Jeffery was out. But if Alshon Jeffery is covered, Ertz is covered, Nelson Agholor is that safety blanket for Nick Foles. He's my 33. What is happening? It's probably because I'm trying to talk quickly and get through this. All right, moving on to the last 3 guys. Josh Reynolds, really, I got to mention him. There's always a chance that he thinks it's Cooper Kupp still playing, Jared Goff that is, and he throws it to Josh Reynolds and he ends up scoring a touchdown. 35, Mike Williams. Not a bad play this week, but to be honest, how much can we trust him? I don't know. He had one good week when Keenan Allen wasn't playing because he got injured. Other than that, he's a 6-point kind of guy a week. Moving on to my last guy, Donte Moncrief. The only reason I'm mentioning him is because Blake the Snake Bortles is playing this week, and with that in mind, he's going to throw the ball a lot. I think Leonard Fournette might not play this week, and Donte Moncrief, of all the wide receivers, is probably best equipped to figure it out for a long bomb touchdown. And with Houston's secondary struggling as of late, I can expect it. I honestly could see it happening. So, Moncrief, you're my last guy I wanted to mention, 36. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. Do not forget, Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will be answering questions and figuring it out. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe if you haven't. All right, anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. What is it? Tomorrow's Friday. I don't want to do a video tomorrow. So I'm probably going to do a video on quarterbacks on Saturday. Might do one tomorrow. It depends how tilted I get. Either way, thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next couple days, somewhere within 48 hours. All right, peace, guys.